If you spend enough time hiking or camping in the woods, you eventually begin to understand the rhythm of nature. At first, it might seem like nothing happens, just trees, rocks, birdsong, and the occasional squirrel darting across your path. But to those who frequent the forest daily, like forest rangers, the quiet beauty of the woods becomes second nature, and any disruption, no matter how small, stands out immediately. Mark, a seasoned ranger who had spent years working in the Arcata Community Forest in Northern California, was used to walking these trails. The forest had become a second home to him, far from the noise and chaos of city life. He thought he had seen it all: lost hikers, fallen trees, makeshift shelters. But nothing prepared him for what he found one quiet afternoon. He was out marking trees for future harvesting when he noticed something peculiar beyond a patch of trees. At first glance, it blended so well with its surroundings that he almost walked right past it. But curiosity got the best of him, and he stepped closer. Hidden in one of the most remote areas of the forest was a small, well-built structure. Not the usual haphazard tarp shelter often seen from transient campers, but a real, carefully constructed cabin. Mark hadn't been in this particular area since the 1980s, back when he was just a forest technician. The discovery of the cabin left him stunned. It stood roughly 8 by 12 feet, with a peaked roof, front porch, awning, and tarped plywood walls built on a concrete slab. There were no trails leading to it, no sign of recent human activity nearby. Yet it was clear someone had lived there, and had done so with care and purpose. He called for backup. Forest technicians Javier Noguera and Nick Manfredonia, along with park ranger Heidi Gaman. Together, they returned to the site, unsure of what, or who, they might find inside. When they broke the padlock and cautiously opened the door, Heidi entered first, gun drawn, announcing herself as Arcata Police. But there was no response. Inside, the cabin told a story of quiet solitude and unexpected order. The living space was neatly arranged, with shelves holding canned goods and housekeeping supplies. There was a rocking chair beside a coffee table, a teapot sitting ready. A small pot-bellied stove suggested warm nights and hot meals. In one corner, a bookshelf housed an assortment of titles, including Catch Me If You Can and Medicinal Plants of the Pacific West, hinting that the cabin's occupant was intelligent, resourceful, and possibly older. A handwritten list added more intrigue. Dated and precise, it contained tasks like build bench, extend brush wall, and get 6-inch stovepipe flashing. Alongside it was an issue of Humboldt State University's The Lumberjack newspaper from March 2015, offering a rough timeline for when the cabin had last been occupied. 2 driver's licenses were found, each bearing different names, possibly decoys or false IDs. But what struck the rangers most was the lack of mess. There was no garbage, no sign of environmental harm. Whoever lived here respected the land deeply. Because camping or living on public land is illegal, the team left an eviction notice and returned later, only to find the cabin gone. Completely. Not even a nail remained. The only thing left behind was a charcoal squatter symbol burned into the ground, marking the cabin's former presence. Michael McDowell, a natural resources technician, was stunned. "That's the cleanest camp cleanup I've ever seen," he said. "Not even a gum wrapper left behind." But the woods weren't finished offering up their secrets. About 3 years later, in November 2018, 15-year-old Ryle Gordon and his stepfather Chris Trumbidge were heading out to Chris's hunting cabin in Hayden, Idaho. It had been a long-standing tradition between them. Chris, an avid outdoorsman, had filled their home with trophy antlers and often spoke of his deep love for the wilderness. Ryle admired him and was excited. It was his chance to bag his first buck. But when they arrived, they were greeted not by quiet trails, but by chaos. Search and rescue vehicles surrounded the trailhead. Dozens of people in bright orange vests scoured the area. A young woman, 19-year-old Catherine Ogle, was missing. She was believed to be somewhere in the woods, and because she had the cognitive development of a 10-year-old, time was critical. The gravity of the situation shook Ryle. Even though he felt at home in the forest, he knew how dangerous it could be. Chris and Ryle assured rescuers they'd be on alert for anything unusual during their hunt. They hadn't gone far when they saw something scrawled in the dirt. One word: help. At first, Chris thought it might be a hunter in trouble, possibly someone needing help hauling a large kill. But Ryle had a different theory. What if Catherine had written it? Chris's expression changed immediately. He knew his stepson might be right. They raced back to the search team and relayed what they'd found. Helicopters were launched, but nightfall forced them to land. Still, something nagged at Chris and Ryle. They decided to search one last area, near their cabin, which rescuers hadn't yet explored. They led a small team into the darkness, flashlights in hand. When they arrived, the cabin appeared undisturbed, though it looked like someone had rummaged through their supplies. The group fanned out, shouting Catherine's name. Engines were cut to listen better. Then, a faint voice. Hello. Following the sound, they found a sleeping bag nestled between trees. Inside was Catherine, cold, frightened, but alive. Emergency responders took her to a nearby health center. Physically, she was okay. Emotionally, she was understandably shaken, but she was safe. To many, Ryle and Chris were hailed as heroes. But the two men simply saw it as being in the right place at the right time, a strange echo of Mark's earlier discovery in another forest. Another life touched by solitude, survival, and the mysteries hidden deep in the woods.